There's a spiritual principle which says your sins will find you out. This is true not just spiritually, but politically, and especially in this age of social media. And it even applies to, non-elected officials involved in government organisations such as Pharmac. Very much looking forward to a conversation with Tash McGill on this topic. Tash, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Morena, good to be with you.
Pharmac, an organisation essentially that makes decisions about which drugs will be purchased for use in New Zealand, and for a lot of people, their lives, certainly their quality of life depends on what's in and what's out in terms of this list. This is certainly an organisation which deserves to be under the microscope. Are they totally above board? Are they beyond reproach? Especially in an election year, we'd expect some transparency and some quick answers in this regard. That certainly hasn't been the case.
It absolutely has not. So in case you've missed the news in the last sort of 6 days, well-respected journalist Rachel Smalley made an Official Information Act inquiry. Just a FYI, those are required by law to be responded to within 21 days.
Yep.
She made an inquiry because she'd been stonewalled in getting an interview about the availability of a certain drug. So she made the inquiry to try and understand why she was being stonewalled, why Pharmac wouldn't front up to an interview. When she received that file 3 months later,
wow,
so 21 days, 3 months.
That's longer than 3 months, yeah.
Pharmac made several applications for extension to avoid providing that required information. She asked for a copy of all communications that included reference to her name.
Yep.
What she found was a little horrific, derogatory, demeaning comments being flown around by email of senior Pharmac staff, including the CEO and several of their senior leadership team.
Yep.
Now, the issue here, and when you actually read some of the comments, one refers to an editorial that Rachel wrote that was headlined by a sub-editor. Rachel Smalley says, several of my friends with cancer would have died if they relied on the public health system.
Yep.
The CEO of the organisation forwarded that email to the senior leadership team with the email headline, sigh, which, if you ask me, is a pretty appalling attitude to demonstrate not just towards somebody who is working at their own cost, at their own time on a passion project to get to continue to highlight the need for really equitable access to medicines in New Zealand. And she does that through a project called the Medicine Gap, but actually derogatory to all New Zealanders who are wrestling with, are dealing with, who know someone, who love someone who has a serious debilitating disease that doesn't have access to the medicine that they require. One of the things that's particularly disturbing about this is that this is a political issue because it is a political year. And Pharmac is an organisation that when it was first set up in the 90s was actually revolutionary because they weren't set up just to make decisions about what was in or what was out, but they were actually set up to negotiate as a single body with suppliers of medicines. And so they do some things really, really well, like get medicines extremely cost effectively. But what they don't do is actually consider the cost of the New Zealand health system or the cost of the New Zealand public sphere of not providing those medicines. So the onward costs of not providing basic medications that are available around the rest of the world. And so we're talking about stuff that's available in the US, the UK, Australia, and parts of developing Africa. There are more effective drug regimes and medications available for some diseases that in New Zealand you cannot get access to. And that's because the funding model has become very binary. It's become really boring. But here's the most important part about this whole thing from my perspective. Does Pharmac need reform? Yes, there was actually a report that came out a little while ago that had 33 recommendations. And the Minister of Health at the time, Andrew Urquhart, said, well, if they don't make the changes, then I've got the ability to fire the board. Well, they've made hardly any of those changes, and the board has not been rolled. The chairman of the board is, in fact, a strong and very vocal supporter of the current government. And so, without wanting to get, too political one way or another, there's perhaps been a little leniency there from actually the only people with the power to make the decision to say, Pharmac, you're not doing your job appropriately, is actually the Minister of Health. So that power now sits with Aisha Vera. I think what's really important, and it comes back to be sure your sins will find you out, is that if it weren't for the fact that Rachel, again, working for no cost, she's not paid by anybody, she's not a lobbyist, she's just a journalist doing a good job of advocating for people who desperately need someone to advocate for them. If she had not made the inquiry, we would never have known the absolute disgrace and belittling attitude with which senior leaders of that organisation are treating other New Zealanders. And it's nearly been 7 days, and there is yet to be an apology, private or public. There is yet to be somebody put their hand up to take responsibility for their actions as a leader in any part of that organisation. The chair of the organisation hasn't even asked for the CEO to resign. Now, I'm sure that there are lots of conversations happening behind closed doors, but is that actually the kind of organisation that should be making decisions for the people of New Zealand as to what access they can get to life-saving and life-changing medication? I don't think so. I'm appalled that that is the type of leadership we have in the public service. And it just breaks my heart.
It does solve one mystery as to why it took so long for these emails to be made available through the Official Information Act, because they were so awkward and embarrassing. And it is, I suppose, that balance. Yes, we want Pharmac to be an independent organisation which doesn't cave to lobbying from various pharmaceutical groups or special interest groups, but we do want them to be accountable. There has to be a tension between political independence, in theory, but also accountability. And if somebody such as Rachel Smalley, as you mentioned, shines the light on what may be a problem, I suppose being in that situation where you feel like you're not accountable means that you get sloppy in the way in which you respond to people who are trying to hold you to account.
I mean, I think, the question of independence is really important, because actually Pharmac is actually part of the public service.
Yes.
And so the public service has one customer and one customer only, and that is the public. And so if your attitude towards your customer, there are all sorts of reasons, and I'm a business owner. I cannot always deliver what it is that my customers want most. I cannot be all things to all people. And that is always the reality of providing healthcare. We are a small country. We don't have enough taxpayers to provide carte blanche access. So we do have to make tough decisions. But in making those tough decisions, as a leader, even whether it's that you make mistakes or whether it's that you're sorry that you're not able to do it, you have to front up and engage with your customers. You have to engage with the people and say, I wish that we could do this, but we can't. The fact that so many New Zealanders now rely on give a little pages to get access, to get funds, to get access to life-saving and life-changing medication indicates that there's something wrong with the approach that Pharmac is taking to its customers. And that's what we need to be remembering here, is that, yes, it's an independent organisation. Yes, it has a limited budget, but Pharmac should be the ones advocating for the New Zealand public. Pharmac should be the ones advocating for their patients back to government to say, we need more funding for this. We need more out of the healthcare budget. We'll save you, $4 billion or $4 million by actually getting this medication. We'll save you $4 million out of the health cost. And so we need that $4 million back so that we can redirect it into other medications and services that will help. And so that's the kind of pragmatic leadership we need. But we also need leadership that takes responsibility. Somebody needs to put their hand up and say, we're sorry, our attitude towards New Zealanders, our attitude towards patients has been wrong, and we're going to make significant cultural change. And unfortunately, you know what? Sometimes things are just rotten from the top down, and you have to actually instigate a bit of a clean sweep to create some significant culture change. And that's a big call from, I'm somebody who likes to deal with transformation and take people on the journey of transformation. But I don't want people making decisions about the healthcare of my whānau, of my family, of my friends, of the people that I care about. Heck, the stranger that I don't know down the street, I don't want anybody making decisions about what they do and don't have access to if they have an attitude towards people that is demeaning, that is dismissive.
Tragically, it is probably because everybody is caught up in this election cycle that they thought, well, hey, maybe this story will go away. However, there is an election results, final chance to vote this weekend. That will involve, at least at some level, some political change. And then the pressure is going to come on. Yes, this is an organisation which is independent, but also are accountable to whoever is in government. And I suspect that yes, apologies haven't been made, but for those people responsible, they know the writing is on the wall. They know that their time is limited and things are going to need to change within Pharmac, and in particular in the way in which they communicate internally and in the way in which they are accountable for not only the actions that they take, the decisions that they make about medicines, but their contemptuous attitude towards New Zealanders and journalists.
Yeah. And if I can bring it back to what does this mean for us as individuals, right? What does this mean for us as individuals, whether we are leaders at home, in our workplace, in our families, in our communities? Here's the number one lesson. Be sure your sins will find you out is the thing my mother used to always say to me. Yeah. And one of the lessons I had to learn hard as a kid, and occasionally still have to learn, is that not all sins are intentional. Sometimes you walk into them with your eyes closed and you realize, oh, whoops, I've made a mistake. But as soon as you do make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is double down on that mistake, right? So as soon as you are exposed, as soon as you are caught in a sin, the best, and I use that term in a broad way. But the soonest moment in which you are caught in a sin, you need to own that. You need to own it. You need to look yourself hard in the mirror. The worst thing you can do is try and make excuses or give people the runaround. It took them 3 months to get those emails to Rachel Smalley. Imagine what they tried to remove. Imagine how much time they spent in that 3 months hiding and doctoring all of the other stuff that wasn't going to make it, because you can tell from their attitude that they got caught in something they shouldn't have been doing, and they spent 3 months running around trying to figure out how they could get out of trouble with the minimum amount of exposure. That's what PR companies are really good at doing, corporate PR, right? We crisis manage. For us as individuals, and it's a lesson I'm still learning, and I'm sure we all are, but the important thing is that when we get caught in a situation like this, whatever you do not run around trying to figure out how to minimize your exposure. Open it up, be honest, and deal with it, and take responsibility.
Less time and energy and money on PR and more time and energy on cancer medications or other medications would be a great idea. Tash, thank you so much for drawing this to our attention. Appreciate your comments and your wisdom. Thanks for joining us today.
Cheers. Have a great day. Don't get sick.